Have you missed it? Like, do you guys think, oh, I should have got in on Bitcoin?
I don't spend a lot
5 years ago.
Bitcoin.
And Bitcoin is something that certainly a lot of people think, is going to rise as an alternative currency.
The Australian Bitcoin Podcast, presented by Heartblock.
It's not a currency, it's not money. I don't understand it.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Australian Bitcoin Podcast, episode 96. I'm DJ, hoping that my internet is sorted. Mike's here. How are you, Mike?
Howdy. Good, mate. How you going?
Good. We've got another very special guest in the house today, Mr. Jacob Wolki, farmer and entrepreneur par excellence. Jake, welcome to the Australian Bitcoin Podcast.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, likewise, man. Happy to have you here. So we're recording this on the 25th of September. Block height is 916,285. Price of Bitcoin, not that relevant, but for those that enjoy that kind of thing, 111,000. We're experiencing a little bit of a dip at the moment. 111,000 US, 169 roughly Australian. So you're looking at a roughly 10% discount off the all-time high prices. So Bitcoin's on sale, which is always good to see. And we're pumping out roughly 1,088 exahashes over the last 24 hours. So that's a little bit of a state of the network. There's a bit of news to discuss over the last fortnight, and I will just apologize to everyone for crashing out in the last episode. That was, Elon promises that he's got like the best internet on the planet, and yet I don't know what happened. All I know is that Daz had better internet than I did in a caravan park, so, whatever. We'll carry on. So we're going to talk to Jake today about farming and see where his entrepreneurial spirit, farming, and Bitcoin all intersect. That's kind of the move there. I follow Jake fairly closely on Twitter, and I love what he posts on X too. A lot of your stuff actually gets through, and the algos seem to appreciate it, which is cool. Maybe it's because of the paid advertising, because every now and again I get served the Wolki ads too, which do work. The lard is good. So anyway, let's kick off with some news. Talk to me, Mike. What have we got? Vietnam?
Yeah, so everyone's probably seen the headline because it's been reported everywhere, but the big news from out of Vietnam is that Vietnam has proceeded to close or is about to close out $86 million bank accounts that do not meet their biometric standards. So it's a bit of a sign of things to come. A lot of people are screaming from the rooftops and saying, pointing at this and being like, this is exactly what I was talking about when, questioning everything that our governments do here in the West. So it could be a flavor of things to come. Yeah, 86 million bank accounts getting wiped out if they don't register all their biometric info with their bank account. So
I think I saw a Reddit post, or at least it was probably a screenshot, because I don't usually go on Reddit unless it's for work. But there was a post by some expat, I think, who had an account in Vietnam, was waiting on some welfare or social security or some kind of benefit, something, tax rebate or whatever, to land into that account. And he had to keep it open in order for that money to actually go in there. Like, they weren't going to send it across in an overseas money transfer. And because he doesn't need to do the biometric thing, I don't think it was even that he didn't want to. It's just he doesn't need to. They're going to close his bank account. And he was on customer service or something, and they were just like, I don't know, like, yeah, you'll have to figure it out. You'll have to, like, I think they even recommended him flying back to Vietnam to sort it out.
I think I read a follow-up from that guy. He's literally had to fly to Vietnam just to verify and keep his bank account open.
Brother in Christ, discover Bitcoin.
And that was with HSBC, which is an international bank. So you would think that in 2025, with a company that is basically in every country around the planet, more or less, you'd think you'd be able to go into any HSBC branch and be like, yes, look, it's me. Please don't debank me. But no, he had to physically go back to Vietnam to verify himself there.
Especially when they're so adept at money laundering, and that's not libel, that's like a provable fact. They've been convicted of that multiple times. So if they can sort money laundering across borders, I'm sure they could probably sort this fella's bank account out. But I guess the eerie thing here is that it's this biometric stuff, and I think it was even facial recognition was one of the things, and that's kind of gross. You know, it's particularly in this age of AI where, you know, you could even effectively take this video and you know, download it and manipulate it in some way and get us to say some things. It's kind of freaky from that point of view, and one of the reasons this stuff makes me nervous. But what fixes this?
Well, obviously Bitcoin fixes this. It's this event is just a big marketing call for a reminder of why we're in Bitcoin in the first place. It provides us a decentralized option, a decentralized alternative to this kind of tyranny. The question is, are the normies going to get it? Are the normies going to understand what's at stake and what they're going to have to fork over just to keep their fake dollar bank accounts open? Time will tell. I'm pretty pessimistic on that, but I'm still going to keep Bitcoining.
Jake, you got any thoughts on all this? I know, particularly on Twitter and Instagram, you don't tend to suffer fools, and you actually tend to co-opt that and use it in your marketing, which is actually very effective and quite funny. From my perspective, I'll speak for me. But yeah, do you have any thoughts on you know, shutting down $86 million? I mean, just one question quickly before we get
accounts,
to that.
That is
86 million accounts. Sorry, where does the money go when they shut that account down? Anyway, sorry, Jake.
Yeah, look, I've got talking about me leveraging the idiots on social media. I've got a friend who's got a saying called "monetize, don't moralize." So, you know, when bleeding hearts want to come and argue with me that I'm planting the wrong species of tree or got great grazing cows wrong, I just like to make fun of them and cash in on the algorithm a little bit. I went to Vietnam, I don't know how long ago it was, 10 years ago. I was on the way home from China, actually. I was in China for a work trip, and I swung through Vietnam, and I was going to meet my sister there. I didn't realize you needed a visa, you know, like pretty naive. I just got into China with their visa system, and I thought Vietnam was easy. And I remember sitting in the airport, no visa, and just told to sit in a corner, and I sat there for hours. No one would talk to me, didn't know what was going on. And some Americans walked past me. They're like, "How long? What are you doing here?" I said, I didn't have a visa. I didn't know you needed a visa. I'm just like waiting until someone deals with me. They said, "Do you have any American money?" I said, "Yeah." They said, "Just go give them $100. And I just walked up to the counter and gave them a $100 American bill. And then I was waved into the country. So, you know, like, I don't think the bar for, you know, sophistication and liberties is especially high in, you know, places like Vietnam. You know, it's not to disparage the people there. The food's good. I had a good time there. But, you know, there's a lot of corrupt systems around the world, and some are a bit more in your face than others, and it's interesting to experience it.
Yeah, indeed.
It gives you an interesting idea, which is like, you know, end of the day, when you're in these countries like Vietnam and other similar countries that are all doing similar sorts of things, you know, there's similar controls in places like Lebanon, Turkey, Venezuela, Cyprus, Nigeria. They've all done similar things with these sorts of controls and biometrics and CBDCs. But in all those countries, you can also bribe your way through them. The scary part is when these technologies and these things come to Western countries where you simply can't really bribe your way out of things. And so your only choice is to comply. So it's going to be a bit scary. And the reason this should be quite high on people's minds here in Australia is, I've harped on it a few times now, but obviously we've got the under 16 social media ban that's coming through. It needs to be in place by December. So platforms need to be verifying that under 16s aren't using their various platforms then. And the way they're going to achieve that is by verifying all of us, making sure that everyone is over the age of 16 before they'll let you use your Twitter or your Facebook account or even your YouTube account. And how they're going to do that, it's probably going to be what's called a liveness check. So a liveness check is if you've ever signed up for a service where you've had to do a ID verification, but it gets you to take a selfie at the same time as uploading your driver's license or your passport. gets you to a selfie. You hold your phone in front of your face and you kind of look around, and it's put your face in the frame. That's a liveness check. It's basically to make sure that you are the same person signing up that's on the ID that you've used to register. And this is biometrics. This is a facial recognition biometric scan of your face. And this is going to be in place for social media accounts in Australia in December. This is coming in a matter of 3 months. So a lot of people will get comfortable with that. It's only another extra step to require it for your bank account and other financial services as well. So we need to start getting angry about this sort of stuff and telling your politicians about it.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot to add to that other than just, what's the word? Peaceful non-compliance is kind of my thing.
Yep.
VPNs exist. Figure out how to use Tor. And to be honest, it doesn't matter what you do. Like, I'm reminded of George Carlin quite a bit. I don't know if anyone's familiar with George Carlin, the comedian. Some would say he's better than Bill Hicks, but he has this quote. Basically, it's the big club, but you're just not in it. And he basically says it doesn't matter how hard you try, doesn't matter how hard you try and route around or get the game's rigged basically, and no one seems to give a shit. Basically. And so, it's a big club and we're not in it. Depends on what kind of club you're talking about. Because I know that there's a reasonably small club consisting of 21 million Bitcoin. And if you get a little slice of that pie, then you have a fighting chance, shall we say, to not bother with this stuff. I mean, you've got kids, Jake, and like I don't know, do you use YouTube for educational things, encouraging your kids to sort of look up stuff and watch things to answer some of the questions that they've got going on? Like, this is pretty harmless stuff. It's always couched in Save the Children, by the way. It's very nefarious. It's very, very, it's evil. Let's just say it,
I've got 3 children, 8, 4 and 2, and I've got my 4th on the way, due in March. I'm a family maxi. I remember being in high school thinking I'd love to have half a dozen kids, and now I'm getting close to half a dozen, and I'm like, maybe 3/4 of a dozen would be good. We'll just keep pushing them out. I am completely opposed to the social media age requirement, age verification ban. And on the flip side, we homeschool and don't own a television. I don't think children should be on the internet, and I don't think that's the government's responsibility. It's pretty easy as a parent to say no, and you hear heaps of parents say it's hard. Stop being a pansy, say no to your child. It's really hard to start saying no to a kid when they're 12. You should have been starting that when they were 14 months old, smashing their brother over the head with a toy train. That's when no starts. It's hard when, and I could talk about this exact subject for hours, but parents they don't have any independence or autonomy. They're overworked, they're soft, they're distracted, they're broke, they're malnourished, and a lot of them just flick on TV and use the portable babysitter at home. And now they look at the government that it's their job to protect their kids, and it's just not. I don't want to have to go through these things either. I've been quite vocal on my Facebook page about it when they were fighting this in the Senate. Interesting, TJ, you said before about, VPNs exist, and obviously they do, but I remember Malcolm Roberts asking a question about this in one of their debates, and I don't remember who responded to him, but they said that they're going to be able to find people who are getting around social media age verification with VPNs by using the data behind image uploads. Like, if you're uploading an image at an event, they can pull the data from behind the image that's being captured and triangulate it against other users in the area and figure out that you uploaded that while using a VPN. I don't understand the data 100%, but the government's got a big budget and they can use it to be nefarious, and they will.
Yep.
Yeah.
Photos have EXIF data that is appended to it, so it contains device information, location information, time stamping, that sort of thing. And there are ways to scrub it, but it's for the average normie, it's out of the question. So yes, there are plenty of options that they can use to track people, unfortunately, which is why we just need to be relentless with, rather than just, we talk about using the tools. Bitcoin is obviously a tool, and there's plenty of freedom-oriented programs out there that people should use to circumvent these sorts of things. But end of the day, we also need to be fighting from just a pure political standpoint and just say that we are not accepting this, that we will not comply, and pushing back on that way as well.
It seemed to work in Nepal recently, I'm pretty sure, when they took their social media away from them. Scrambled EXIF, I think, is an app that you can use, an open source app. If you're going to share photos online, make sure you run your photo through that first, and that'll scramble all that EXIF data. Let's move on. The digital euro. We've got what's her name, von der Leyen, and Chrissy, Miss Chrissy Lagarde,
yep.
the convicted criminal, are still pushing unelected convicted criminal, still pushing this digital euro thing, which is still not yet live. They're talking about it, and whenever they get any derision, I think I saw a clip earlier this morning, von der Leyen was getting a little bit of derision from the parliament, and still couched in disinformation and misinformation and stuff like that. They're a bit desperate. I would like to see what happens, to be perfectly honest. Do it, see what happens. Instigate a digital euro. I mean, the landscape is fairly bleak from a headline perspective, but what are your thoughts, Mike?
Well, this is it's an interesting topic, and obviously it's been kind of on everyone's radars for a long time. But the reason I wanted to bring it up, put it on the list, is they're having to double down and speed up their plans, because, as people know, Trump and the US are going hard on their stablecoin plan, and there's this plan to basically get the whole world using stablecoin, US dollar backed stablecoin, ditch your Bolivian peso or whatever you're using, and just come to US dollar stablecoin. It's part of their plan to make the US the Bitcoin and crypto capital of the world. Use stablecoin as a piece of that, as a tool in that tool belt. And so the Eurozone is panicking because they run the SWIFT system. The SWIFT system is what's been sort of the lifeblood of international payments for the longest period. And as a result of the conflict with Russia and Ukraine, and Russia getting kicked off of SWIFT, it's kind of caused a lot of, especially BRICS nations, to sit up and realize, they're beholden to this European-controlled SWIFT system. So they're looking for alternatives. And the US is looking to offer one through its stablecoin system. And so Europe is amping up their own efforts to launch their euro stablecoin, which will, in theory, provide some of the similar abilities that a global stablecoin system can do. And yeah, they're just desperate to hide the fact that it's obviously got not very good privacy guarantees. It allows them an overt amount of control over their people's spending habits and tracking and all that sort of thing. They're bending over backwards to say that it's all good. We're going to protect your privacy and all that sort of thing. Could be true, they could be right. It could be that they actually will do what they say, but then with the lurch of politics, you get an overt fascist state in power or whatever that has this tool available to them to then manipulate their people and manipulate their currency. It's just something that it's just not a good idea. So it's relevant.
Well, you can play it out. Like there's that, you tied in with the whole climate change debate, and cow farts are destroying the entire planet. And I've seen photos of your farm, Jake, and you've got those beautiful Ngunis there, and they just look like they're wreaking havoc on that landscape. And if I was to purchase some of your quality product, and that transaction was shown on a CBDC, I mean, it already is seen now, really. You could still extract metadata, but the notion is that it would be automatic, and that would be like, well, this is the third order you've put in this month. You want to ease up on the protein here because we don't want to contribute to the wholesale destruction of the planet. And that's kind of one of the things. And it sounds super far-fetched and crazy, but it's legitimate and it's completely within the realm of possibility. The Australian Securities and Investment Commission has introduced licensing exemptions for intermediaries involved in the distribution of stablecoins. So we're speaking about stablecoins. And this is within the Australian context. So unpack this for us, Mike.
Yeah, so the Australian government's obviously taking the Trump administration's lead. They're seeing them leaning heavily into their stablecoin grand plans. And so ASIC and the Australian government's trying to follow suit and kind of loosen a bit of the regulations around letting Australian financial companies have a go at stablecoin technologies, services, that sort of thing. And so there's the classic linchpin in dealing with financial products in Australia is a need to have a Australian Financial Services license, AFSL. It's a pretty hard thing to get. It's pretty expensive. So if you're a fledgling startup that's coming up with new ideas in the crypto, stablecoin, Bitcoin space, it presents a big thorn in the side of actually breaking out and achieving what you want to achieve, because you need this very expensive, very difficult to obtain license before you can get your ticket to play. And so that we don't get left behind, ASIC is taking steps to basically hand wave it away for companies that are doing stablecoin related stuff. You are exempt from certain rules, certain regulations. You don't need your AFSL if you are building certain approved stablecoin projects. So far, there's only been one exemption offered to a company that runs the Audi. I think it's called the Audi, the Australian. It's an Australian stablecoin, Australian dollar-backed stablecoin. It's so funny. We talk about stablecoins. The better term is obviously a always lose coin, because it's still backed by an asset that's just getting inflated away as we speak. So every time I use the word stablecoin, I'm like, there's got to be a better word for this.
94%. 94% is the purchasing power decline since the dollar was first initiated in the early 60s. I think it was 1966.
Yeah. Unstable coin.
94% of its purchasing power over that time. That's not stable.
Yeah, where's the stability there? So so we're going to see some more sort of stablecoin shenanigans coming out in Australia now. You'll see more companies jumping on this exemption and start to roll things out and test things. And this is in the shadow of something we've previously talked about, which is Project Acacia, which is the Reserve Bank of Australia's plan to pilot a bunch of different projects around stablecoins, CBDCs, that sort of thing, which is still bubbling away in the background. It hasn't gone away. They're still doing 24 different trials across different projects to do with CBDCs and stablecoins. And now they're bringing, the regulation is catching up and saying, okay, we're going to exempt these companies working on these different projects. And so now the race is on to see who gets snapped up by Commonwealth Bank and the other big four and the RBA to control our digital future. So everyone should be keeping a close eye on these stories as they come up, and express your discontent on social media before you're banned.
Gross incentives, man. They're gross. I've actually been doing a little bit of a deep dive in the last week or so about the history of banking in Australia, and I've uncovered some interesting stuff. I'm going to put it down in an article, and we'll publish it on the learn.hardblock.com.au website, possibly next week. Keep an eye on our socials for when that gets put out. It's going to be as short as I can possibly make it without losing and lacking any detail. So those of you with short attention spans, it may not be for you. So I'll try and package it into some kind of 10-second, bite-sized thing. But I would hope that most of the listeners that are tuning into the Australian Bitcoin podcast do actually have a reasonably long attention span, such that they could actually read what will be roughly 1,000 words articulating the history of banking in Australia. And let's just say the TLDR is dodgy. It's pretty dodgy.
Jacob, do you work this sort of stuff into your homeschooling curriculum with the kids? Teach them about the origins of our modern banking system?
Yeah, well, look, like the way we sort of homeschool is we do English and math. We take English and math pretty seriously in terms of like a regime, but everything else is really waterfall learning. And the concept of waterfall learning is you pick a concept that a child's engaged with at the moment, and you just foster conversation around that. So you'll talk, if you've got a kid who's interested in trains, you can talk about mechanics, you can talk about steam powered, coal powered, you can talk about geography, you've got math, you've got commerce and business, selling tickets, what it costs to run the train. And, you get the picture, you just expand and expand on it. And my 8-year-old Otto is completely insatiable for information. And we talk about, things like politics and banking. Like we drove into town today and I put some music on. He goes, Dad, play me some music you listened to when you were younger. So I put some Good Charlotte on. He goes, Dad, can I ask you a question? So I paused the music and he goes, did all these guys OD from drugs? Because, previously I've been open with him. I'm like, a lot of musicians are sort of like lefty, arty brained, and they get into drugs, and this is what drugs are and stuff. And he's never let go of that. So, we talk about, I don't shy away from any conversation with my kids, and he's a pretty well informed, skeptical young man.
Mm. What's your opinion on, just to sort of go on that homeschooling tangent for a moment, do you have an opinion on using AI tools to support this, or are you just like, absolutely not, keep it right out? What's your
I personally love the idea of using AI. We currently don't. All the good programs that I've researched and found that I'm like, this looks like a fantastic tuition-based AI, that will talk to my kid, get them to read something, unlock a game for 10 seconds, sort of gamify learning a little bit. I'm not opposed to that. They're all the ones I've found are currently only available to registered schools to use in sort of that early beta phase. I've used Grok and ChatGPT to create lessons for my kids. So I wanted to do a 50 series tuition on like Greek philosophy with Otto. So I got ChatGPT to break down just like one paragraph, simple concept. So it took the key learnings of Seneca and the key learnings of Marcus Aurelius and just really dumb them down for children. Right? And so that's not Otto directly using AI, but it's me harnessing AI to sort of just speed up the ability to dumb down the content to make it palatable for a child. But I've got no issues putting him in front of a computer once that software's, effective and I've sort of proofed through it a little bit and it's there. Because self-learning I hated school. And, part of the reason I hated school was I just found it really boring because I found stuff a little bit easy. I remember a teacher coming to me in like year 8 or 9 and dragging me over the coals after class. And I used to get in trouble a lot because I was the class clown, distracting everybody, talking too much. It was Mr. Wolki, stop talking, keep your hands to yourself, sit still. The same stuff that most young boys probably get. But I'll never forget this one time this teacher stropped me over it, and she said, it's not fair because the classmates you're distracting need this time, you don't. And it was the first time it was ever articulated to me, and I sort of like wrapped it up. It's like, we don't all learn at the same pace. And that's not to say I'm some wizard or brainiac. It was just, the kids I was hanging out with needed a little bit more time than me at that stage. But like, why do we all go at the same pace? So being able to give Otto the ability to self-learn at whatever pace he wants, and he can crank out 4 hours one day and do nothing for 3 days. We're pretty laissez-faire about that.
Yeah, it's been a long sort of established idea that the fact that we now pack all sort of ability types into a single room of 35 kids, and everyone then moves at the pace of the slowest kid. It's harsh, but you can see some ideas there, or at the slowest pace of the distracting class clown in the back. So yeah, it is interesting seeing these different efficiencies that can be gained through these new tools.
Yeah, absolutely. And every kid's got a different way of learning, right? Like I'm mechanically retarded, never thought I could fix anything, couldn't repair anything, couldn't build anything. And since I've thrown myself into building, it's like I can actually do that. I was just never put in the environment to be able to figure it out for myself. The way I was taught these things at design and technology class never worked for me. So, the education space is interesting.
The thing is, that notion of wanting you to regress to the mean is pretty pervasive. Like, that was the solution. Like, Jake, I get it. You know all the stuff. Now you're supposed to sit there and be quiet, sit on your hands and just sort of wait for everybody to catch up. That's not a a very practical thing to tell a young man who wants to just be outdoors or just, yep, cool, got this, sweet, move on to the next thing. You know, what else can we explore here? Before we do pivot actually to the conversation with Jake, I just wanted to quickly do some quickfire because it's not all doom and gloom. Square has begun publicly beta testing Bitcoin payments. So there's a couple of followers that Jack Dorsey has urged basically to connect if they're a merchant and they're interested in testing the new capabilities. This is pretty powerful. I mean, there's a centralization risk here, but similar to sort of like the POS system with Wallet of Satoshi or Zeus, a few of the others, they do make accepting Bitcoin for a business very, very easy. And Square, people are effectively, that's going to just turn on in the background. And if you're a Bitcoin and you say, hey, do you accept Bitcoin? And you see their Square terminal and they'll be like, oh, no, we don't. You're like, well, actually, let me just flick the switch and away you go. Like, that's going to be pretty remarkable. So there was that. Shell, $200 billion oil and gas giant, is now started to accept Bitcoin payments in South Africa, which is pretty neat. And they've got Lightning support as well through Zappa. And then I don't know if anyone caught this, but he was holding a Bitcoin, but it looked like a shitcoin. This golden statue of President Trump had appeared on the National Mall in front of the Washington Monument. I think that was last week. And you've got in your notes here, Mike, that there was also a Trump and Epstein statue, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I was looking up this golden statue of Trump, and I was like, surely this is just like an AI fake or something that's just, you know, someone's having a play. But no, it's really there. And then I was looking, okay, well, and when I was searching around, I saw that someone did a statue of Trump and Epstein, kind of like holding hands, like in a dance. And, you know, it's good because, you know, where are the Epstein files? We can't let them get away with it, no matter what's going on. Oh, cool story. Where are the Epstein files? Come on.
The Epstein files didn't kill themselves.
They did not.
Are you looking for a simple way to buy Bitcoin in Australia? Hardblock makes buying Bitcoin easy. As Australia's longest running Bitcoin exchange, our mission is to help Aussies simply and easily buy Bitcoin and take it into self-custody. There are no deposit or trading fees, just a clear 1.2% spread whenever you buy or sell, lol. That covers our operating costs, so you always know exactly what you're paying. Withdrawals are just $1.18 AUD or as low as 400 sats with AutoSend. No hidden charges, no surprises, just a fast, reliable, and easy way to stack sats with total transparency. Get started today at hardblock.com.au. Bitcoin made easy for Aussies. Technology, we talked about AI, we talked about incorporating that particularly in and around autos learning at this point, Jake, but I'm curious to sort of pivot the conversation now to the intersection of where you sit with respect to your exposure and your into what is the word? You know, interrelationship with Bitcoin and how you've incorporated that. I remember, I think you've sold the bike shop. Am I correct in thinking that?
Almost. There's a new owner working in there at the moment. We're settling in November. We sold our cafe back in March.
I see. Okay. I remember you posting a big sign a few years ago, Bitcoin accepted here in the bike shop. A lot of the Aussie Bitcoiners, they all got excited about that, which, you know, there's usually slow news in the Bitcoin space in Australia. So we all, you know, sort of like that kind of stuff, which is a really good business op actually for anyone listening. Like if you are a cafe owner like Jesse at Rise Mofo, or you got a bike shop or whatever it is, just start accepting Bitcoin and we'll talk about it and people will get excited. Like it's free marketing. But how are you incorporating or how are you incepting Bitcoin into your world with respect to farming and just day-to-day life and any other entrepreneurial farming activities you got going on down there? Give us a 101 lay of the land.
Well, we put that sign up and advertised that we accepted it in the bike shop and the cafe. We did a few like a few dozen probably cafe transactions over the couple years. And it was mainly Bitcoiners who were traveling up and down the Hume and wanted to stop in and get an egg and bacon roll and a latte and tap for it. So that was a bit of fun. In the bike shop, we sold a few good bikes, like a few e-bikes and stuff. So that was a bit exciting. And it was, you know, guys that had, like they bring their laptop in and they've got some air-gapped cold wallet opening up their computer in the shop and asking me for the address. Like the staff are all like, this is so hard. Why don't they just pay EFTPOS? They didn't really make it look as easy as it could have been. But in the farm business, like we sell everything through, like most of our sales go through our website, wolkifarm.com.au, and it's a Shopify hosted website, and you can get to the checkout and where you can hit your different, whether you want to do Afterpay or, credit card or whatever, you can select to pay with Bitcoin. And I've got a string of customers that do that. I don't think that most of them would be customers of mine if I didn't accept Bitcoin. Like, I think these are guys that go off the beaten track to specifically support me. Obviously, they appreciate what we do on the farm, but there's plenty of other farms doing a great job as well that are maybe closer to them. I think they support us just because we're part of this system, this ecosystem. And I really treat the Bitcoin coming in as a bit of a treasury for the business. DJ, you mentioned when we were chatting off the record before that you remember me saying a long time ago that I don't buy much Bitcoin, and I don't buy much. Most of the Bitcoin that I've got coming in is earned, and that works for me, and I park it aside as a bit of a business treasury, and if I have to liquidate some for cash flow, I do. If I can buy a bit more because I've got cash flow, I do, and that's how we sort of work with it. Unreal.
How does it inform your approach to farming? Has it? Does it? I know that, and I don't want to dox him, but Foz has worked with you, and he's a massive Bitcoiner and a massive advocate for Bitcoin and for regenerative farming. So surely some of that's rubbed off, or at least you've taken on some of that. Yep, cool, got it, noted. But are you thinking in terms of how those two things intersect and what is possible now on your farm?
Look, probably not too much directly, but we do have a few philosophies on the farm that we've curated over the years. And I think a bit of the thinking that underpins them came from getting into the Bitcoin space and becoming educated, on solid money and time preference and these sorts of things. So the cattle that we use are fit for purpose cattle. And you start thinking about the concept of fit for purpose. Is our money fit for purpose? What is and sort of understanding that concept and what is the purpose of money? What is the purpose of a cow? And is the money or the cow that we've got fit for that purpose? And then working backwards. I think reading Seyfedin's books and just getting involved in the space and getting some of these really fundamentals distilled down, you can just bring that, I guess, logical thinking across. I was probably infiltrated my decision making in a day-to-day. While it may not be a specific Bitcoin-related decision, it has affected the way I think about things and approach things.
Interesting. Are the kids, are they stacking? Have you got a little savings account?
Yeah, so Otto created a Lightning address a while ago, and I actually put it on X, and a bunch of guys pinged him a heap of sats. Someone sent him $100 worth, and so that's what we use when we pay our kids to do chores around the farm. So we don't do pocket money, and we don't do chores. We don't pay our children to do tasks that are just integral to the running of the family. Like, I don't agree with paying kids to hang out the washing and make their beds and stack in the dishwasher. Like, they're just things that we all do to live and survive. And when you live on your own, you're going to be doing them anyway. But if I need diligent help on the farm and Otto's up to it, Otto's 8, he can reverse a trailer. Like, there's a lot of stuff he can help me with on the farm. I'll tell him sometimes, come and give me a hand with this, and it's great because when you're sending them sats, you can say a really big number and they get really excited. It's like, come and drive this tractor in the paddock for me, I'll give you $5. It's like not very exciting. Come and drive the tractor, I'll give you 5,000 sats. And all of a sudden he's like, this is dope.
Unit bias is real, you see? This is why we should switch. I love it. Mike, you got any questions?
I do think we're going to look back one day and Otto's going to say, Dad, remember when you gave me 5,000 sats to do that little job, and back then it was, worth a couple cents, and, look up what it's worth today, and we'll just have a laugh about how outrageously minuscule it was then and how substantial it is now. Like, I'm really looking forward to those dinner table conversations in 15 years.
That's going to be unreal. That's going to be hilarious and pretty darn grateful. I mean, gosh, just the notion of having, 5,000 sats. That's a few sats, you know. It's nothing to sneeze at.
I've got a I just want to make a comment and then ask you to share something, Jacob. I got to say I'm a big fan of like what you do and you know, your family and your business. It's a really good story in the Bitcoin space, and you know, it's quite inspiring. And I think that the way that you're raising kids seems right. It seems more natural than the standard city play of, you know, kids hit a certain age, you got to go back to work, shove your kids into daycare, then shove your kids into primary school, then high school, and, you know, let the state take care of it so you can stay at your fiat day job all day. Whereas what you're doing is, you know, you're building a family business, they're involved in it, you're compensating them for it and getting them motivated, and you know, you're homeschooling. And it's like, it's quite inspiring. And I think it's what a lot of Aussie Bitcoiners do aspire to. You know, we've kind of fell into this, you know, we were grown up in the city, so we keep living in the city. We were grown up with fiat education and fiat jobs, so we keep going with this fiat education and fiat jobs, and our kids go through that pipeline as well. Do you have any advice for like how someone might be able to break away and kind of do this different path that you're doing? Was there anything in your mind that really like pushed you down that path, that flipped that switch in your brain that helped you along to where you are now?
Look, it's hard to give advice because everyone's situations are so nuanced, and you're going to get the reply guys that go, that won't work for me. But the reality is that if you want it to happen, you will make it happen. Now, I've got personal friends that have 12, 13 children and homeschool all of them on a single wage. These aren't business people. These aren't wealthy people that came into money. One of them's a full-time labourer. He's not even a tradesman. He's a full-time labourer. He's got 12 children at home, and his wife is home full-time, homeschooling all their kids, and they do it. Now, can you do that, you know, on a minimum wage job living in the Sydney CBD? No. They find a place where they can afford the space and access the job and do what they need to do. And the sacrifices, maybe you're not going to spend $300 on the trendy jeans that are pre-ripped on the knees. Dumb stuff, you know, maybe it's not the newest Google Pixel every year or whatever, but if you actually want it, you will figure it out. It is definitely a lot easier if you have a support network. I've got some great friends who weren't born in Australia. They live here now, and they've got no grandparent support network. You know, my wife and I have I've actually got great grandparents that I can drop my 3 children off to for 4 or 5 hours, and my great grandparents who are nearly in their 90s can look after my 3 kids for a few hours. So, you know, being able to leverage a support network like that is sensational. But the homeschool thing is not as much work as people think, because what people do is they look at what schooling is and they think, how am I going to recreate this at home? And I've even had to beat this out of friends of mine who are trained teachers that now homeschool their kids. When they were thinking about, do we homeschool? I remember sitting down with them and they brought forward this curriculum and they'd written a 6-hour schedule every day for their children. And schooling does not take 6 hours a day. Schooling is glorified daycare, like glorified babysitting, whether you're talking about a 4-year-old or a 14-year-old. It is not necessary. We're talking for a young child under 10 an hour a day is heaps. You know, for a kid really knuckling down and doing a lot of deep study when they're a bit older, maybe 3 hours is maximum at a stretch. Like, how much deep work can you guys do if you're in the zone, chewing a bit of nicotine and you got the noise cancelling headphones on? Like, you're not doing that for 8 hours a day, 6 hours a day. Your brain's fried. It's a couple hours of like really in-depth work, and the rest of the time is play. So, and you know, honestly, probably the best thing that can help you is having one of you in the relationship who is ready to be there along the children on that role. So, you know, my wife and I have the good fortune that we've built ourselves into a position where we work from home. You know, we didn't grow up on the farm. We chose to farm. I'm on the road a lot, driving to properties, going to the butchery, but my wife is at home doing our value adds all the time. So she's quite often got the children with her, and the journey I had to take her on, she wasn't very keen on the homeschooling thing when we started. The COVID lockdown sort of got her on board with that. But, you know, you really need to come at it at a unified front. you need both of you to be driving it. But it's not what I guess I'm getting at is it's not 6 hours a day of tutoring for an 8-year-old. It might be 90 minutes 3 times a week, and the rest of the time the kid can just do whatever you're doing. Let them dig in the sand pit, let them make a bit of mess somewhere, go to the park with some homeschool friends or some friends from church or some friends from the Bitcoin group, and then just get them involved in day-to-day life. Like my child Otto was getting up at 5 years old and cooking himself and his brother Theodore bacon and eggs every morning for brekkie at 5. You know, that's one less thing we had to do because we raised a competent kid who could do it. So it's not like you've just got this enormous workload. You've actually got a lot of time and opportunity to, you know, download these skills and work ethics into your kids to make them really integral parts of your family. And I think a child should start being a gross contributor in terms of chores around 6 or 7.
Yep. That's awesome. And it's also, it kind of gives you it forces you to be, what's the word? I don't know what a good word is, but it forces you to fix your habits. Where if your habit right now is to, like if I was homeschooling a kid right now, he'd be watching me spend 4 hours a day shit posting on Twitter. As you know, if I was actually trying to do this properly, I'll be like, okay, no, we're actually going to go and do something productive now, and you're going to help me. So
Yep,
it
100%.
forces a bit of positive behavioral shift on your own part as well.
It absolutely does. I walk into the house of an evening, like I try to normally get home around 3 or 4 and crash in the house to start helping with that time of the day with the wife. And I'll slump down on the couch and flick my phone out, and I'm, you know, what has Trump said? You know, what's pinged off here? And I'll flick my phone open and the kids will all just pile on me and start staring over my shoulder, wanting to look at the screen to figure out what's going on. And I turn my phone off, and the children think I'm turning my phone off because what I'm looking at is inappropriate for them. The reason I turn my phone off is I'm introspectively embarrassed that I've just come home and my 3 kids are happy to see me and I've slumped onto the couch and I'm opening my phone. You know, it's just no good. So it forces you, and if you're diligent about it and you're earnestly trying to put your best foot forward, you have to take a step back and go, we can get a lot more done in the day if we don't spend as much time on Twitter, coming from a person who spends a lot of time on social media.
I've got a question, Jake, just to provide a little bit of further context. We mentioned it earlier, but what's a Nguni and why is it fit for purpose?
Yeah, sure. So Nguni are a breed of beef cattle that have come to Australia from South Africa. They're raised by the Zulu tribal people over there. And, you know, there's a few reasons that I think they're fit for purpose. And I can talk about how they've got a smaller frame and better inherent body condition and the fertility and the maternal ability and all this sort of stuff. But the crux of it really is that there's 2 things, I believe, is one, Australia's climate and landscape has more in common with Africa than it does with England. So when you look at our Angus, our Shorthorn and our Hereford, sort of our 3 main pioneering breeds that Australia was really established with, they're all from the UK. You know, what does the UK mimic? Maybe Tasmania and a little bit of southern Victoria, and that's really it. So we've taken these cows that in the UK, 26 degrees Celsius would be a heat wave, and we've put them up in Queensland. And, you know, to be fair, they've had a couple 100 years to be bred better and adapt and stuff, but I still think the base that we've done all that work on probably wasn't the most proper base to begin with. So taking an animal from South Africa that has, you know, been there for as long as it's been there and adapted to that environment, which has a lot in common with us. Sub-Africa has very dry areas. It's also got tropical areas, really mimicking Australia's continental Australia. I think that is the first piece of the puzzle that makes them fit for purpose. And the second thing is they've come from a tribal background and they've sort of only semi-recently been traded out of these. The genetics have slowly been traded out of these tribes and then farmed in the West. So we haven't really had too much time to get involved with this breed and stuff it up. And so we've really got a great base of natural selection and natural pressure on these animals without the pharmaceutical industry, without feedlots, you know, without sophisticated management. They've really just been do or die mobs that have had to just put up, living with people in dirt huts and just deal with the seasons as they came and have a calf every year. And the whites in South Africa that traded and got a hold of these genetics, they really respected that because they saw how well they were doing with in that climate compared to the sort of European breeds that the settlers were bringing down continental Africa. And so a lot of them got these Nguni and didn't muck with them. You know, who is it? Steve Irwin. Don't muck with it. You know, just let them do their thing. Stop getting involved and sticking them with needles and backlining and drenching them and giving them grain when it gets a bit tough. Like, just let them do their thing. So they haven't been ruined by that sort of Western paradigm of always having to interfere with everything. So that's what I think makes them fit for purpose.
Nice. So are they the Bitcoin version of cattle? The sort of the Rolls Royce, the Bitcoin version. If it's Apex money, are these Apex cattle?
Yeah, I believe Nguni is top tier, and I wouldn't be wasting my time with them if I thought there was something better out there.
And you can buy some Nguni to eat, and you can pay with Bitcoin, right?
You can do that with me. Yep.
Yeah, interesting. So if there are any actually new listeners that have tuned in because Jake's on the show and, you know, curious about what Bitcoin is, I mean, gosh, we've just given you enough reasons at the top half of the show to potentially look into this thing unless you want your bank account closed and your money disappeared. But you should pick up a copy of the Easy Bitcoin book. I'll show that and shill that again. We're sending this out to all the meetups in and around Australia. So if you're running a meetup, you know, give us a holler on Twitter. And we'll arrange to get a couple of books sent out to you. Yeah, so, and we've got a couple of initiatives coming out on Hardblock. We've got the DCA calculator. If you haven't seen that and you want to find out how much money you've lost over the last 5 years, jump on and check that out. We'll put the link in the show notes. And I just wanted to talk one last thing with Jake. Is it strange to think that, you know, your kids are going to grow up, you know, they were born in a post-Bitcoin world. They don't know any different, but they're going to just be like, it's just the thing. It's just going to be this thing that exists, and so long as, I guess, the authorities and some of the poorly incentivized actors of the world continue down this path of, you know, ridiculousness, to put it kindly, it's going to be a forcing function for independent, critical thinking minds to effectively be attracted over to something like Bitcoin and to the values that it embodies, the people that actually interact with this thing. You know, how do you think about what kind of an impact that Bitcoin and the farm and the business is going to have on your kids? It's going to make it viable, because I mean, a lot of people just tend to, you know, walk away because it's very difficult. But whereas you've got this long-term incentive because of the price appreciation, the ability for it to hold its value in line with the value that you're creating on the property at the same time.
Yeah, look, it is interesting, and I do think about the way that the world's going to shape that the kids grow into. Like, when we have friends and family over for dinner, and my children, like, they'll say, "Oh, did you get any pocket money this week?" "No, but I earned some Bitcoin," and people laugh. Like, people think it's a joke, or they think I'm scamming my kids. And Otto will say to them, "Well, what do you want the dollar for?" Like, the government just prints more of it, and he doesn't even really know what he's saying. He's just parroting Dad's talking points. But even just watching these, you know, boomers just think it's this big joke, and you've just got this absolute cog diss event between this boomer and this 8-year-old because of their, you know, what they're exposed to in the world. It's really funny. But to be completely frank with you, I don't spend heaps of time thinking about it. Like, the way the money, like, I've only got so much energy I can put into things. I've got a lot of things that I'm involved with. And, you know, we can't all fight every fight. Like, I stack sats. I've got it available for commerce. My personal opinion, and I know this is wildly unpopular within Bitcoiners, but I think Bitcoiners should use their sats more. Like, if you're a Bitcoiner and you're purchasing off me, I think you should be using it to send the market a signal. I get calls from so many farmers. Should we be using trading with Bitcoin? I say, yeah, absolutely. It doesn't cost you anything. Put it on your website. What percent of your sales is Bitcoin? And I tell them, and they go, "I'm not interested." Doesn't, like, so if you're going to spend fiat on my website, just convert it to sats and flick the sats over and give the market a signal. You know, it's not like you have to be eroding your stack. Anyway, I know that triggers a lot of them. But I don't spend too much time on it. It's not my fight. The farming's my fight. But I also sort of look at it and I go, the money thing is solved Like we've got the framework, we've got the technology, we've got the solution. I've put it into action in my life, and now I'm just going to go and deal with other things. So, and so I guess I don't spend heaps of time in it because I sort of feel like the framework's there. It's fixed. It just needs to get adopted.
Yeah,
Nice.
right. Nice.
Just to bring it back around to kind of what we started off with right at the start, we were talking about, these $86 million bank accounts getting kicked off in Vietnam and all these CBDC plays happening and stuff coming to Australia soon. Back to what you're talking about with people paying and actually using their Bitcoin, it is crucial that part happens, because if we start getting deplatformed, banked, because we're not doing the biometric verification and we're not doing the stuff to get on social medias and we're starting to get kicked off things, that's where we need this circular economy. We need to be able to go to our ranchers, go to our farmers and pay in Bitcoin. We need to go to our grocer and our fruit and veg and be able to pay in Bitcoin, because that's the resilient community that we want, so that as these globalist sort of schemes just get layered upon us, we do have this option in Bitcoin, but we have to actually know how to use it. We actually need to know how to actually go to our farmer and buy the stuff that we need to live with Bitcoin. It's all well and good having it having it in cold storage, having it safe and sound, but if you then also need to verify your dystopian bank account to be able to buy stuff, is that really freedom? I don't know. I think we need to be able to use the Bitcoin in the real world as well. So yeah, your message is super important there.
Yeah,
To
draw a parallel, you don't just want to be scrapping and building everything when it's the absolute doomsday. It's everything's collapsing. Like to draw a parallel with my industry, I get phone calls from hundreds of farmers when the market crashes and lambs are being sold for $1 a head up at Wagga, like they were about 18 months ago. I get phone calls from every farmer every day going, how do we sell direct to market like you? Lambs are only worth $1. We're losing money hand over fist, but the supermarkets are still charging this. And I give them a bit of advice and I tell them what I've done and what worked and what didn't work for me. And they get all excited about building a brand going direct to the consumer. And then the market corrects and they lose interest and they just go back into being a commodity cowboy. And I've tried to say to these guys, you need to be building this market even in the good season. You need to be, if you want to be a price maker and not a price taker, this is something you need to practice every day, every week, every month, not just when the market falls to shit. Because when the market falls to shit, you've got no cash flow, you've got no equity, you're stressed, you're in debt. And you need to be doing it all the time. So it's all well and good to say Bitcoin's going to solve all these problems. And if the event there was, more tangible hyperinflation or sort of harsher government overreach, surely there'd be quick adoption. But it'd be nice to already have a pretty sophisticated supply network ready to receive that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Building in the bear is crucial, and a lot of Bitcoiners will know a lot about that. Jake, thank you so much for jumping on the call and talking to us on the Australian Bitcoin podcast. Mike, it's a pleasure. I'm so stoked that my internet has lasted for the entire episode. I know it's only happened one out of the, what have we recorded? At least 10. So, it's reasonably stable, but yeah, I don't think I'll ever get over that DAS-B recording, to be honest. Your internet seems to be holding up quite well in that shed there, Jake, too. So, it can be done.
I don't even have Wi-Fi. I'm just on 5G on my mobile phone.
There you go.
God bless the NBN. I want to bring this into land. Thank you to Jake. Thank you to Mike for jumping on the call. We'll see you guys for episode 97 in the fullness of time. Cheers.
No worries. Thanks, guys.